Hi everyone, and welcome to this online introduction to the Library of Congress website. My name is Peter Armenti, and I'm a reference librarian in the library's Researcher and Reference Services Division. My main goal for our program today is to help you understand the full range of resources that are freely available on the library's website and the best strategies you can use to locate them. If you've previously spent some time on our site, you know that searching it can sometimes be overwhelming given the huge number of materials available through it. Just to give you a quick sense of what's available, our site provides access to millions of primary source materials such as photographs, maps, manuscripts, newspapers, sound recordings, and video recordings. These materials span numerous historical eras, subjects, and geographic locations, though you'll find as you look at them that there's a special emphasis on resources related to American history and culture. Our site also includes thousands of secondary sources, things such as blog posts, online bibliographies and resource guides, staff-written essays, and finding aids. You'll find that most of these secondary sources you come across are designed to organize and help place the primary sources on the site in their appropriate historical and cultural contexts. The problem, though, is that sometimes it's not very clear how to find certain types of primary and secondary sources on our site, and you can wind up spending a lot of unnecessary time trying to locate materials that interest you. I hope that this webinar will make it faster and easier for you to find the information you need as you move forward with your online research. Now, if you take away only one thing from today's program, it's that you should feel free to contact us anytime you need help locating or using materials on our site or in our physical collections. The easiest way to do that is to contact us through our Ask a Librarian service. The link to our Ask a Librarian service appears in two different places off of our homepage. One way to find it is to click on the three horizontal lines at the top right of the page. This is often referred to as a hamburger button since it kind of looks like a hamburger patty between two buns. When I click that on, a menu appears, and one of the links on it is a link to our Ask a Librarian service. If you want to submit a question to our Ask a Librarian service, you can click on the online form link or the Ask a Librarian graphic, and either of those will bring you to our general inquiries form. You can fill out your name, contact information, and your question, then submit your question via the Ask Your Question button at the bottom of the form here, and your question will go to Library of Congress reference librarians. Our general policy is to route your question to the appropriate area of the library and to send you a response within 5 business days, though usually you'll hear back from us much sooner. I also want to mention that we do have a general chat service. You can access that from the general inquiries form at the top right of the page. Our chat service is Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you have a reference question after the program today, you can click on the chat link here and engage with the chat session with one of our reference librarians. If you know the specific subject that you have a question about, if it's a business-related question, for instance, you can choose the appropriate area from the list of links underneath the Ask a Librarian graphic, and that will open up a business-specific or a subject-specific web form that you can fill out to send it to those subject specialists. However, you really don't need to worry about that. You can just use the general inquiries form, and we'll route it to the appropriate area of the library on your behalf. As I mentioned today, my presentation is focused on the library's free online resources, so I won't be talking too much about our subscription databases, finding aids, or other tools for determining what's located on campus here at the library. I also won't be talking much about two other resources, congress.gov and the U.S. Copyright Office websites. Congress.gov, which I'm opening up now, is the official website for U.S. federal legislative information, including the full text of bills back to 1989 and bill summaries back to 1973. You should contact our law library through Ask a Librarian if you have questions about using congress.gov. And at the bottom of the congress.gov page, there's a Contact Us link that will take you to Ask a Librarian. Congress.gov, there are also training sessions offered for it through our law library. Karen will send you a link that includes information about upcoming sessions when dates for them are sent. But Since it's my understanding that the next training session won't take place until next year, if you want to review a recording of the most recent congress.gov webinar from last month, you can email us at drt@loc.gov, and I'll be happy to send you a link to the recording. And Karen will put in that email address in the chat box. The library is also home to the U.S. Copyright Office, whose website I'm bringing up now. If you have any questions about copyright, including how to register a work with the Copyright Office, how to obtain copies of a copyright record or deposits, how to search registration records, or anything else related to copyright, your best option is to contact the Copyright Office directly. Now, before I move on to key resources for finding digital materials on our site, I did want to take a minute to talk about the library's online catalog, since it's such a widely used resource. A link to the online catalog could be found under this main graphic on our homepage. I'm going to click on the library catalog link right now. The catalog is the main resource for locating books and other materials in the library's physical collections. It includes 17 million records describing these items, which include not just books, but periodicals, manuscripts, maps, music, images, and electronic resources. In some instances, catalog records will include links to public domain books, digital images, or other online content available through our site, but the majority of the records you'll find are for materials available only on campus here at the library. The catalog includes keyword browse and advanced search options. A basic keyword search can be done by simply entering keywords into the search box on the catalog's homepage. So for instance, if you're interested in finding books on the history of Halloween, which is only a few weeks away, you can conduct a keyword search on the words Halloween history. And doing so will return all records in our catalog that include both Halloween and history in the records. You'll see that 133 records are returned. If you want to, you can sort the records by title, author, or publication date, or you can just browse the list. I'm going to click on the second item here, which is a record for a book by David Scull called Halloween, The History of America's Darkest Holiday. I can review the record details for this book to figure out if it's relevant to my research. If it is, and I want to read the book on campus here at the library, as long as the book's part of our general collections, I can click on this Request This Item button right here to begin the process of having it delivered to a library reading room for my use. I should note that to request a book, you need to already have a reader identification card, which can be obtained only at the library, and then you need to set up an online borrowing account, which only takes about 1 minute while you're here at the library. A librarian here can also help you set up a borrowing account if you don't already have one. Now, if I want to find other books about Halloween, I can check the record for Scull's books to see what Library of Congress subject headings have been assigned to it. And then I can click on one of those headings to be brought to the heading in our online catalog subject heading list. So if I click on Halloween history, this will take me to a page listing Library of Congress subject headings, the first of which is for the heading Halloween history. And the number in parentheses at the right indicates how many records exist for that particular heading. I can then click on that heading to see the 7 records assigned it. Now, another option I have for looking for materials is a browse option. So if I click on the little search options link under the search box at the top, I can then click on Browse to go to the catalog's Browse page. Let's say I'm interested in Halloween music, and I want to find all subject headings assigned or associated with Halloween music. From the drop-down menu, which presents a number of options, I can choose Subjects Containing, and then enter the words Halloween music. And this will bring up any subject headings that include both Halloween and music. Looks like there are 6 records returned, and looking at the records, I see that the third heading here has 54 different records listed under it. It's for Halloween songs and music. If I click on that heading, I'll be brought to the 54 records. Again, I can sort it if I want to, so I'll sort in order of publication date, newest to oldest, and I can see there's a mixture of books, sound recordings, and even some sheet music or music scores, it seems here. Again, the key takeaway is that most of these items aren't going to be available online. You'll probably have to come on campus here to the library to view them. Now, I've only scraped the surface of options for searching the online catalog. You can learn about other search options by clicking on the catalog's hamburger button here at the top right of the page. You can click on Help and FAQs, and then to receive additional information about how to effectively search the catalog, you can choose one of these options. So if you choose Search Help, you'll learn how to effectively search the catalog. And of course, if you have further questions, you can always contact us through Ask a Librarian, and we'll be happy to provide you with additional assistance. Going to go back to the library's homepage. The homepage is the default starting point for most people looking for digital content on our site, so I'd like to take a couple minutes to give an overview of it. At the top right of the page, you'll find the website's main search box. You can use the search box to conduct a keyword search across most of the library's online content. We'll look more closely at how to use the search box in just a little while. To the right of the search box is the hamburger menu. As I showed you earlier, you can find a link to Ask a Librarian here, but you can also find links to several other important areas of the site that serve as good starting points for research, and we'll come back to a few of those in just a few minutes. The area immediately below the search box is called the Carousel. The resources listed here are typically newly digitized or updated digital collections and resources, and also news about significant library events. So the featured item is looks like a press release about the library's recently published and new strategic plan. I can go click on the arrow to view other featured items in the carousel. The second item, for instance, is a press release about a new digital collection called the National Screening Room, which provides hundreds of hours of motion pictures, many of which are in the public domain. I can click on the little website link here to go straight to that digital collection. Many people don't realize that our website provides access to thousands of public domain audio and video recordings, and this new collection provides a sampling of what's available. I'll talk more about our digital collections in just a minute. Under the carousel, you'll find several quick links to frequently used areas of our site. You can click on this little down arrow right here to expand the list of links. I want to point out that all of the resources listed here can be found through the hamburger menu, except for two of the resources under Especially For. And these are the links to librarians and kids and families. These two areas compile significant resources on our site for those two audiences. The reason I mention this is because if you use a mobile device, it's important to know that you can find all of these quick links through the hamburger menu, because some mobile devices don't display the links under the carousel. So you need to find them through another mechanism, such as the hamburger menu. Under quick links, there's a section called Trending. Top searches here lists topics that users frequently search for on our website, and if you click on any of the links, you'll execute a keyword search of our site for the highlighted term or phrase. Some of these topics change regularly, usually due to the approach of major holidays, events, or celebrations. Below top searches, you'll find a rotating set of library resources. And these feature a diversity of materials from across the library's website. Want to point out, since poetry is one of my subject areas, is that there is a new poetry podcast that is being released by our current U.S. Poet Laureate, Tracy K. Smith. So if you want to learn more about that podcast series, you can click on the link to find out about it. The next section is Your Library. This section provides information for anyone interested in coming to the library as a visitor or a researcher, or who wants to contact us with a reference question. This section, scrolling down, also lists current exhibits, upcoming library events, and library-related news. Underneath that is a section called Free to Use and Reuse. Each month we feature a new topic here, and we pull out a selection of images on that topic that are in the public domain. The current topic is bridges, and so you can look at this selection and click on any of the featured bridges, such as this image of the Golden Gate Bridge, to view it. If you click on the link I'm highlighting right here, you can view all of the older monthly free-to-reuse sets. And then finally, there's a section called Follow Us, and here is where you can find different ways to contact us or to connect with us through social media. So we have Facebook channels, Twitter feeds, Instagram, RSS and email feeds, and more that you can access through here. I'm going back to the top of the homepage. Now that I've given you a quick overview of the homepage, I want to go into a bit more detail about the main ways to search our entire site for online content. There are essentially two main approaches to searching the site effectively. The first is to identify the specific database, collection, or section of the site most likely to include information related to your area of research, and then to limit your searching to that area. The second approach calls for a broader initial search. You'll begin by searching across our entire website using the search box at the top of the homepage. And then you can apply filters to limit the results of this broad search to particular subjects, time periods, geographic locations, and more until you find the resources or items that best meet your needs. I'll talk about each of these two strategies in turn, and we'll give a few examples of resources you can find through each approach along the way. Again, the first approach is to identify and search within the digital collection database or section of our site most likely to provide access to the materials you're looking for. By focusing your search on a particular part of our site, you won't need to worry about retrieving irrelevant materials located elsewhere. For instance, if you're looking for books in our collections, you'll want to search our online catalog directly, as I've just shown, rather than the main search box, which will return tons of other materials that aren't catalog records. Similarly, if you're a baseball historian interested in researching the evolution of player statistics on the back of baseball cards, you'll probably want to search directly within our digital collection of baseball cards instead of conducting a broader search of the site that will include many inappropriate results. The majority of our primary source materials, such as our baseball card images, are located within one of several hundred digital collections on our site. The easiest way to identify these digital collections is to click on the Digital Collections link under the carousel. I'm going to click on the link now. Mobile users for whom this link doesn't display will need to click on the hamburger button up here at the right and then click on the Discover link. And from there you'll find a link to digital collections. You'll currently find 334 digital collections available here. The term digital collections can mean different things to different people, but in terms of our site, we consider a digital collection to be a group of digitized or born digital items, along with accompanying texts about the collection. So these texts could include things such as an about page describing the collection, a page about the copyright status of items in the collection, and any special articles, essays, or timelines that help put the collection's content into context. Our digital collections are very often based on discrete physical collections available here at the library. So our digital Abraham Lincoln papers is based on the physical Abraham Lincoln papers held here in our manuscript division. Karen's going to send a link to an overview of our collections that goes into more detail about the different types of collections available at the library. If you scroll down the digital collections homepage, you'll see that a title and brief description is given for each listed collection, as well as the number of items in that collection, which will help give you a general idea of its size. When you have time, I definitely encourage you to browse the complete list of collections to get a sense of their range and diversity. One important thing to note when you come to this page is that searching it using the search box at the top here does not search the millions of items included in the digital collections. Instead, it searches each digital collection's about page. So a keyword search of digital collections from this page will only return a list of digital collections whose about pages include the keywords on which you searched. You then need to select one of the collections that were returned to search within it for specific items. To give you a quick example, I'll search on the name of American poet Walt Whitman. We have thousands of items related to Walt Whitman in our collections, but when you search up here, you find that only 4 records are returned, and these are for 4 digital collections. The first 3 include materials about Walt Whitman, as you can tell from the titles, and the 4th doesn't actually include anything related to Walt Whitman. It just includes a reference on the About page indicating that the title of the collection was taken from one of Walt Whitman's poems. So again, to search the items about Walt Whitman in these collections, you need to go into each collection individually and then search within it. Rather than conduct a keyword search at the top of the digital collections homepage to identify relevant collections, you can also use the Refine Your Results options at the left here. So thanks to the musical Hamilton, there's been a lot of interest among the general public during the past couple of years about the life of Alexander Hamilton. Let's pretend I'm a researcher interested in finding out if the library includes any digital manuscript collections related to Alexander Hamilton. One thing I can do is scroll down the Refine Your Results list to Formats and choose Manuscript Mixed Material. This will limit the number of collections to 114. So all of these collections will include manuscript materials. Then I can click on American History to further limit the collections to 57. Then I could even further limit to the subject Government, Law, and Politics. So now I'm down to 37 collections once this search processes. I'm not sure if that's going to open up, so, oh, here we go. Okay, so now I'm down to 37 collections, and when I browse it, I find that the second link is to a collection of Alexander Hamilton papers. And I can click on that link to go directly into the collection, which, if you read the About page, you'll learn contains about 12,000 items, most from 1777 until Hamilton's death in 1804. And they include Hamilton's personal and public correspondence, drafts of his writings, items that document his experiences as a Revolutionary War officer, and more. If you're a teacher, educator, or scholar interested in Hamilton's famous and fatal duel with Aaron Burr, under the featured content here at the top, I can scroll through and let's see. Okay, so this next to last link here will open up a letter sent by Alexander Hamilton, or I should say written by Alexander Hamilton on the 4th of July to his wife, Eliza. And I'm just waiting for it to open it now that I've clicked on the link. Hopefully it will open soon. So this letter was written a week before Hamilton's duel with Burr, and it was to be delivered to Eliza only upon the occasion of Hamilton's death. And I was hoping to take a look at the letter and read part of it. Here we go. So I'm going to open up the full view of this. And so even though Hamilton thought dueling to be a barbarous practice, in this letter he notes that he couldn't refuse to participate in the duel with Burr without being branded a coward, which was a stigma that could ruin his standing in public life. The letter reads in part, "This letter, my very dear Eliza, will not be delivered to you unless I shall first have terminated my earthly cares. If it had been possible for me to have avoided the interview, my love for you and my precious children would have been alone a decisive motive. But it was not possible without sacrifices which would have rendered me unworthy of your esteem. With my last idea, I shall cherish your sweet hope of meeting you in a better world. Adieu, best of wives and best of women. Embrace all my darling children for me." Since I haven't yet given an overview of what a typical digital collection looks like on our site, right now I'm going to go back to the digital collections homepage, and I'm going to search for the papers of civil rights activist Rosa Parks. And our site's a bit slow right now, but hopefully it will open up in just a moment. Here we go. So a typical digital collection, such as this one, for the Rosa Parks papers, includes a search box, at the top of the home page that allows you to search within the collection, a list of featured content below it, and then an About page that describes the collection. If you read the About section for the Parks papers, you'll learn that it includes thousands of unique items, including letters, diaries, notes, photographs, and other documents related to parks. At the left of the About page, you'll find a link to related resources, which includes bibliographies of print materials, as well as links to online materials on our site and other sites that include information related to parks. So it's a great starting point for research. You'll also find a rights and access link, which will tell you what we know about the copyright status of the items in the collection. You'll find teacher resources. If you're a teacher and want to know how to integrate some of the collections or the items in this collection into the classroom, you can use these teaching resources. And then expert resources. These include things such as a finding aid for the Rosa Parks papers and an online web guide to materials about Rosa Parks available on our website. You can go to this guide to learn not just about what's available in this digital collection, but other materials about parks elsewhere on our site. If we go back above the featured content, you'll also find links to any articles and essays we have related to the collection. Here's a timeline related to the life of Rosa Parks, a couple essays, and a video about the Rosa Parks collection. And then at the top, there's also a link to collection items, which is where you'll go to find the actual items that comprise the collection. As I mentioned, you'll find a search box at the top of the page. And right now, I'm going to do a sample keyword search of the collection on the keyword arrest. That search returns 36 results. If I wanted to, I could sort the results by different criteria, such as date or title. And I can also change the view. I could do a grid view, for instance, which will get rid of some of the text, but will allow you to fit in more images on a single page. If you're researching visual images, this might be a good option because it will give you a better sense of the range of materials available in a specific collection. If I wanted to limit my search to only manuscripts, not visual materials, under the Refine Your Results options at the left, I can click on Manuscript Mixed Material. That narrows my results down to 3 items. I'm going to click on this first record here. I should note right now that in our digital collections, sometimes records can be for single items, and sometimes they can be for a series of items. For instance, a single record could include a set of correspondence that includes 10 separate letters, with each letter being a separate item. This type of arrangement, which gathers multiple items under one record, usually reflects how the physical collection is organized into boxes and folders. And this is what's going on with this particular record, which includes several different accounts of Parks' arrest in 1955 and the subsequent Montgomery bus boycott by African Americans. If you look at the record, for instance, you'll see that it is part of folder 2, and then farther down, box 18 of the Parks papers. I'm going to click on the image right now. This will open up all 30 images that are part of this collection, or this record, and I'm going to go down to image 27. If you're interested in knowing what was going on in Rosa Parks' head at the time of her arrest, here you can read her reflections on being arrested after refusing to give up her bus seat to a white passenger in Montgomery, Alabama. And she says, "I had been pushed around all my life and felt at this moment that I couldn't take it anymore. When I asked the policeman why we had to be pushed around, he said he didn't know. The law is the law. You are under arrest. I didn't resist." Underneath the images, you'll usually find download options as long as the item can display remotely. Due to the copyright restrictions, you'll be able to download them as certain files such as JPEGs or high-quality TIFFs. And at the top right, there's this little share save option. If you want to share an item through social media, email it to yourself, or save it, you can choose from the appropriate options. Going to go back to the home page now. One of the best ways to search for specific types of resources on our site beyond the digital collections is to make use of the options under the hamburger menu. And I'm going to talk about a couple of these options right now. The first one I want to look at is this Discover option. Clicking on the Discover link brings me to the Discover page, which I feel is one of the best starting points for researchers for accessing major online tools and resources on our website. You can find links here to our online catalog, our list of digital collections, list of digital collections by format, a link to our 20+ reading rooms homepages, popular materials on our site, and our podcasts and webcasts. Under Research and Reference, I'm going to click on the link, and this brings us to a page that lists all of our Research Center and Reading Room homepages. These are often great places to look for content depending on your subject of research. For instance, if you're interested in local history and genealogy, you can go to our Local History and Genealogy Services page to learn about relevant resources available both on campus at the library and online that might be of interest to you. I'm going to click on Science and Technology right now, which brings us to our Science Reference Services page. Just to give a sense of what you might find on a reading room homepage, here we have research guides by subjects, created by science reference staff. So if you're interested in agriculture, you can click on this link and find a host of subject guides on different aspects of agriculture. There's also a science, technology, and business blog. You can access that blog right here to view the various blog posts available through it. You can view webcasts sponsored by our Science Reference Services staff here, and other neat resources. There's one especially that I like called Everyday Mysteries. I'm going to click it on right now. Everyday Mysteries is designed with kids and families in mind and provides answers to everyday questions about science that kids might ask. So the featured question for today is, why do I see my breath when it's cold outside? Appropriate for this time of year. And you can find the answer right here. You'll find links to related websites and other materials to learn more. The key takeaway here, again, is that if you're interested in a specific subject, you should come to this page and see if there is a reading room or research center here that's related to your area of research. And then you can click it on and explore the resources available through it to see what might be of relevance to you. Now, another thing I wanted to point out on this page appears under On the Web. Under Exploring the Collections, the third link is to Collection Guides. Through this link, you can find a list of bibliographies, research guides, and finding aids available from reading rooms across the library. You can view all of them in this long list here, or you could narrow them by area of the library. I'm part of the digital reference section here at the library, so I'll click on the digital reference section link so you can view some of our web guides. You can see they're sorted by subject. So if you're interested in African American history, you can find links to many web guides in that area, including the Rosa Parks web guide I mentioned earlier. There's a web guide on Alexander Hamilton and other American founders, historic American documents, presidents, and more. So if you're doing research on George Washington, you can click on the Washington link. And this guide, you see, provides links to digital collections on our site related to George Washington. You find other materials on our site that aren't part of one of those 300+ digital collections. You can come here and view those resources about Washington. You'll find lists of external websites related to Washington and a selected bibliography of print resources, both for adults and younger readers. So again, I encourage you to take a look at these web guides, because if there's a guide on your area of interest, it will compile materials on that area from across the library's website, saving you tons of time having to try to find that material yourself. I'm going to, go back to that Discover section. The next thing I want to point out is our historic newspapers database. That can be found under the Popular section, the final link. Clicking that link on brings us to Chronicling America. This is our historical newspaper database, and it's an amazing resource for learning about the histories of local communities, as well as how significant events and figures were covered in newspapers across the country. It's a collaborative project of the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Library of Congress. It makes available more than 13 million digitized newspapers, or newspaper pages, I should say, from 48 US states and the District of Columbia. The dates currently range from 1789 to 1963, and the pages are all in the public domain and free to reuse. On the home page, there's a neat little 100 years ago feature where you can learn about what was happening in local newspapers 100 years ago today. Under Advanced Search, you can search across Chronicling America. You could limit your search to specific state newspapers, to specific newspapers, and to different time ranges. Just to give a very quick example, if I'm interested in learning how Halloween was celebrated in the past, I can limit my search to 1900 if I want to learn how Halloween was celebrated in 1900, and then search on Halloween. Click the search button, and then take a look at the results. There are 918 results returned. The first one is from the San Francisco Call, the October 28th, 1900 issue. And when I click it on, there's an article titled How to Celebrate Halloween that goes into the local customs and practices for celebrating it at the time. And so if you read the whole article, you'll learn that Halloween was more about the romantic desires of young men and women than about kids' candy and trick-or-treating. And so there were a lot of little charms and activities that young adults would participate in that would help them determine things such as who their future wife or husband would be and what their love life would be like. And here we see, if you read the article, this is a little hoop that's set up with pieces of food dangling from it. And everybody around is gathered and pulling off a piece of food from this hoop. And whatever you pull off will determine what your future love life will be like. And you can learn more about that practice by reading the article. One other thing to point out about Chronicling America, at the left of the home page here is a recommended topics link. I'm going to click that on right now. And then click on the alphabetical list of topic pages. These topic pages are created by staff in our newspaper and current periodical reading room and highlight coverage from papers in Chronicling America on different topics. The World Series, the Baseball World Series, is not very far away, and we have a topic page on baseball's World Series. If I go to the topic page, I'll find important dates associated with World Series history, suggested search terms for finding articles about the World Series in Chronicling America, and then sample articles from Chronicling America for different World Series ranging from 1903 to, I believe, 1922. I can click on any of these links to open up the article in question. So again, the Topics in Chronicling America page is another great place to look for to see if there's a topic related to your area of research or interest. I'm going to go back to the library's homepage now. Then from the hamburger menu, I'm going to click on Visit. Most of the information on this site is related to visiting the library in person. However, I wanted to take us here because it also includes this section on exhibitions. And if you click on the link, you'll be brought to our main exhibits page. Through this page, you'll find online versions of physical exhibits held at the library since the mid-1990s. They're a great way to find primary sources on a huge range of topics. They aren't listed among the digital collections we looked at earlier, which is why it's important to know where to find them. The page up now shows current exhibits on display at the library. One of them, for instance, is called Baseball Americana, and it relates to the history, evolution, and celebration of the game among American communities. If you go to the exhibition items or explore the exhibit down here, you'll find almost all of the items that are on display in the physical exhibit along with the captions. If you want to view all of the online exhibits that we have, At the left here, the second link, or the third link, is to all exhibitions. If you come here, there are something like more than 100 digital exhibits that you can review and take a look at to find primary source materials. Again, another great place to look for content that might be related to your research and interests. I'm going back to the home page, clicking on the hamburger button again, and now I'm going to click on the education link. This page here compiles education resources that are available on our website. The main one I want us to look at is this one called Teacher Resources. This brings us to what we call the Teachers page. The Teachers page features resources to help teachers introduce primary source materials from our website into their classrooms. If you're a teacher looking for lesson plans, teaching ideas, and hand-picked digital content you can introduce to your students, this area of our site is definitely your best starting point. You can find classroom materials gathered here by standard. You can find a Teaching with the Library of Congress blog that includes great ideas for using our materials in the classroom. And at the top left, you'll find a link to classroom materials. Here's where you can access our lesson plans. And all of these lesson plans draw on materials from the library's online collections. You can see recommended grade ranges. You can also find, again, primary source sets. Clicking on Alexander Hamilton, you'll find that members of our educational outreach team have pulled different primary sources related to Hamilton here and have created a teacher's guide that teachers can use to help students understand and analyze the primary source materials. And there's also an analysis tool for students to help them learn how to analyze primary source materials. If you're a teacher, definitely take some time then to review the Teachers page. Back to the home page, open the hamburger menu again, and then back to education, because there's one final thing I want to point out here, and that is our Today in History feature. Today in History draws, oops, and I see for some reason it says October 9th. So I'm going to move that forward to October 10th. Today in History draws heavily from the library's digitized content in order to highlight people, events, and activities associated with each day of the year. It's one of our most important portals for educators, students, and lifelong learners interested in learning about American history and culture. Each entry includes a brief essay about the featured person or event, and also includes links to primary sources, and at the bottom, suggestions for finding additional materials on the topic on our website. If you find a Today in History entry on a topic in which you're interested, then it's a great starting point for locating materials on that topic spread throughout our website. This particular entry here is on the completion of the C&O Canal on October 10th, 1850. You can read the entry to learn more about it. You can see here the different primary sources embedded in the entry, and then just to scroll down to show you, here is a Learn More section. There's a Learn More section for every entry that includes details about how to find other materials on the topic on our website. If I scroll back to the top, I can search Today in History entries by date. A lot of people like to see what happened on their birthday. And then if I use this breadcrumb trail here and click on Today in History, I'm brought to a page where I can search within the Today in History collection. If I want to see if there are any Today in History entries on Walt Whitman, I can do that search here. And the first couple results returned are for Today in History entries related to Whitman. So when you have time, definitely do a search of Today in History to see if there are any entries related to what you're researching, teaching, or interested in. Now, one final thing I wanted to show before I go over the general site search is our Connect page, and that can be found through our hamburger menu as well. The Connect page is where you can learn about the different ways that you can connect with us through social media. So you can learn how to access our blogs, our Facebook channels, Twitter feeds, Instagram accounts, our videos and webcasts. We also have a Flickr presence, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and more. You can find all of that here. Generally speaking, most of the new content, events, and activities taking place here at the library are highly publicized and linked through our social media channels. And so they represent a great resource for learning about new content posted to our sites, new resources, and information about the library and events taking place here. For example, you can look at our blogs. If you're interested in poetry and literature, you can go to our poetry and literature blog called From the Catbird Seat. And the first item here is the announcement about the Poet Laureate podcast. So again, Tracy K. Smith, the current U.S. Poet Laureate, will be releasing a poetry podcast in November. You can read about it here and learn how to listen to the podcast once it becomes available. One of the nice things is that all of our social media presences have ways to easily subscribe to them. At the top of this particular blog, for example, there's a subscribe button. And if you follow the link here, you can learn how to subscribe to our different blogs. You can simply scroll down to From the Catbird Seat, choose to connect via either RSS or email, and follow the instructions. And that way, you'll get email or RSS alerts anytime there's new content posted. And now I'm going back to the home page. Everything I've been doing so far has been an attempt to illustrate that first approach to locating materials on our site that I talked about at the beginning of the program. And that's to identify digital collections, resource guides, topic pages, and other areas of our site that contain material on a particular topic or person that interests you. The main idea behind that approach is that it will allow you to identify the areas of our site that best meet your needs, which you can then search within for relevant content. The second approach I want to review for finding materials is a general site search using the search box at the top of our homepage. I recommend using this option if you want to conduct the broadest possible search of our site for resources that might interest you. This type of search will give you a general sense of the extent and scope of materials we make available online in any given area. What's really useful about it, though, is that it allows you to refine and narrow your initial keyword searches through filtering options. And these will help you hone in on the resources and items that most interest you. That said, I should point out that one thing the search box is not well suited for is determining what books and items that we hold in our physical collections. If you want to know what books we hold, again, your best option is to go to our main online catalog that I showed you earlier and to search directly within it. Similarly, if you know that we hold a particular collection of manuscripts and want to see if we have any online finding aids related to them, your best option is to go directly to our online finding aids. Karen's going to put a link into our online finding aids. The other caveat to point out when using the main search box is that it does not search the Chronicling America newspapers database. If you want to search Chronicling America, you need to do so directly within Chronicling America. When I use the search box, I prefer to start by clicking on the little magnifying glass. This takes us to our main search page. And it helps me better visualize the types of content that are available for me, to search on. The default view here, as you can see at the left, is to search for online items. And there are currently over 2.2 million online items. If I want to search for all items, this would include things such as catalog records for books in our physical collections. You'd need to choose that little radio button instead. In addition, under the Refine Your Results options, you'll find that you can limit your searches to different categories or facets. These include original format of the material, online format, date, location, part of, contributor or creator, subject, language, and then the last one is access condition. Access condition is helpful if you're trying to filter out materials that might not display on our site due to copyright restrictions. If you click on the available online category here, that should usually limit your search only to materials that are in the public domain, usually. I'm scrolling back to the top now. Now, you can conduct a keyword search at the top here to initiate your search, but you don't need to do that. If you want to, you can simply use the facets at the left to conduct the search. Now, before our program, I looked at the registration list and noticed that somebody from Chicago is supposed to be in attendance. So I thought I can give an example of the faceted search by looking for maps of Chicago. To do that, I could start by limiting my search under original format to map. That will limit my results from over 2 million items to about 35,000. Then I can scroll down and further limit my results under location to only those maps in Illinois. When I do that and go back to the location facets, I'll find that the subfacets under that have been refined. So now I can further limit my search to specific counties or cities in Illinois. I'll choose Chicago, which will further limit my results to 127. If I wanted to limit my search to 19th century maps, I can go to the date facet and choose 1800 to 1899. And as with the location category, I can then further limit my search to a specific decade and then to a specific year. I can limit to the 1890s. I'm down to 23 maps. And then I'll limit to 1898, which will bring me all the way down to a single map, which is this bird's eye view of the business district of Chicago. I'll click the record link to open it up. And now one of the nice things about our map records is that once you bring up an image of the map, you can zoom in on the map to view it in much greater detail. I'll zoom in on this map. You can see you can go to a very high level of resolution so you can make out street names and more. So here is Michigan Avenue, and underneath it you can see Lake Michigan. A lot of our local historians and genealogists who come to our site love these map collections because they can often recreate what a town one of their ancestors lived in looked like, and they can also often find the specific street their ancestor lived on, and even sometimes the very house. Going back to the main search page now. You don't need to conduct an initial keyword search to receive results, but if you want to, you can start out with a keyword search, and I'm going to do that right now. So, okay, good. The main search page just popped up. Let me also note right now, before I do a keyword search, for those of you who want to know, Boolean operators are supported. So you can use and, not, and, or to link or disassociate different searches. You can also truncate your search terms using an asterisk. So if I type in PO with an asterisk, that will execute a search on any word that begins POE. So things like poem, poet, poetry, poetical will all be searched on through the use of the asterisk. And I think Karen, if she hasn't already, will provide a link to our search help page, which will explain some of these search options in more detail. On October 28, 1919, prohibition officially began in the U.S. with the passage of the National Prohibition Act. So I thought one of the things I could do now is to do a sample search to find materials related to prohibition on our website. I'm going to search on the keyword prohibition. If I were doing a thorough search, I'd also come back later and do searches on related terms such as temperance, the 18th Amendment, alcohol, and other related terms to bring up materials that might not be captured through the keyword prohibition. But right now, I'll enter that keyword in and then click the search button. And once that search executes, I'm going to use the refining results options at the left to further refine my results. Okay, here we go. 43,000 results. Let's say I want to limit my search to materials about prohibition that are associated with New York State. I can come down to the location category and click on New York. That will limit my search to 962 results. If I only want to find images, I can click on image as the online format. And again, I can use the date facets here to limit to 19th or 20th century. So I limited it to the 20th century, and now if I wanted to, I could just review the items that are returned. This first item is a piece of sheet music related to prohibition, and in fact, looking at the subject headings, it looks like it's a piece of Yiddish sheet music. There's even a note here that describes it a bit. Prohibition is now the rule throughout the land. Congress has passed a law and America forbids whiskey and beer. Therefore, no more drinking here. Instead, just put salt, horseradish, and vinegar into your cup. I can click on the thumbnail image here to open up each page of the sheet music, and then click on a specific image to see that page. And again, I can zoom in on it. I can open it up in full view if I wanted to as well. We only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to point out one other option for finding materials through this search option. I'm going to deselect some of the facets I already selected. So I can deselect the dates, location, and online format categories. A lot of these searches will return primary source materials, but if I want to find secondary source materials through a keyword search, there are some useful tricks. They often relate to limiting to a specific part of facet. So I'm going to click on this More Part Ofs link under the Part Of category, which will open up a larger list of facets. If I'm looking for secondary source materials, such as topic guides, web guides related to prohibition, one of these Part Of facets I can check for is Research and Reference Services. And I'm putting my mouse over that one right here. I'm going to click that on, and then limit my results further to web pages. So these are web pages associated essentially with our reading room home pages. If I limit my search in this way, the majority of items I find will be resource guides and topic pages. So you see here, there are selected images related to prohibition from our Prints and Photographs reading room. There's one of those topics in Chronicling America related to prohibition. And there's even a resource guide to the 18th Amendment. You can come here and learn all about the 18th Amendment and more. So the Research and References Services facet is extremely useful to use. A couple other ones to mention. There's one called Library of Congress Blogs that will limit your search only to blogs. There's one called Today in History that will limit your search to Today in History entries. And there's one for Teacher Resources that will limit your results to those teacher resource materials. And again, to find those, you can go to Part Of. You can search either alphabetically or by number of matches. So if I want to do it alphabetically, I can go to Part Of, alphabetically, and then I can search on Today in History. Hit Go, and here's the Today in History facet. Click on that link, and it brings me to Today in History entries that mention prohibition. So knowing some of those facets and exploring the facets that are available will really help you hone in on exactly the types of materials that you might be interested in during the course of your research. At this point, our hour is about up, so I want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about what I talked about. Again, I know I didn't address everybody's questions today, and I encourage you to use our Ask a Librarian service to submit us any questions you have after the program. And also, if Karen has a chance, she's going to provide a link to a survey that we hope you'll complete if you have time. If you'd like to see a future program on a specific subject or area of our site, please let us know in the survey, and we'll be happy to take it under consideration. So I'll go back to the home page and wait to see if there's any questions. So somebody asks if they'll receive a copy of the webinar. The answer is yes. The webinar is being recorded. Tomorrow I will send all participants and registrants an email that includes a link to the recording, and I'll also provide a handout that includes links to many of the major resources that I highlighted today. I think my colleagues have been working hard to answer many of your questions as you submitted them. Somebody asks, did you address copyright issues with photos? So our Prints and Photographs division has an online guide to assessing rights and restrictions associated with photographs available through it. So I'm not sure if Karen has provided a link to that, but I can see if I can find that quickly. Oh, Karen sent it out, it sounds like, so perfect. So I would take a look at that document, and that will cover most of what you need to know in order to make a good assessment of whether a particular image or visual item you come across in our collections might be free to reuse, or there may be copyright restrictions associated with it. Somebody says, Andrea says, are there some resources to help PhD students on their dissertations? Well, I would say that depends on the specific topic of your dissertation. Again, a lot of our online resources are primary source materials. If those might be helpful to your particular area of research, then you can freely access most of them. I should mention that we have many subscription databases here at the library, but you have to be on campus to access those subscription databases. And again, the same holds for most of the items that you locate through our online collection, which will be for materials that you can only access here at the library. But I definitely encourage you to use our Ask a Librarian service to submit us a question. You could let us know a bit about your research topic, and we'll be glad to get back to you with any resources we have available that we think might help, and to give some other suggestions for other places you might go to help with your research. Somebody asked, what's the difference between email or chat? So if you use our Ask a Librarian web form, what you'll be doing is essentially sending an email to the Library of Congress. So there will be a delay in getting a response back. It can be up to 5 days. However, submitting a question through the web form will give a librarian here a good opportunity to thoroughly research and respond to your question. Chat is live, so it's a one-on-one live interaction with the librarian where you have a discussion or back and forth. So you can ask your question live, and a librarian will immediately get back to you with a clarification or some suggestions that you can use. Hopefully those will answer your question. A lot of people like to have that immediate response from a librarian, and so they prefer chat over email. It ultimately comes down to what you prefer, though I will say chat is often helpful because it allows us to figure out exactly what you're asking and what types of materials you need on the fly without having to clarify with you via email. So Jenny asks, what is in the catalog and what is not in the catalog? Again, our online catalog is primarily a place to go to find out what items are in our physical collections. Now, sometimes you will find materials, such as public domain books, that are linked through the online catalog. but this isn't always the case. I would say if you're interested in finding what we have available physically here at the library, use the online catalog. If you're more interested in figuring out what we have freely available online, use the search box at the top of the home page, or navigate to one of those other resources I mentioned during the course of today's program, such as Chronicling America, and search directly within it to find those free resources. Well, thanks for all of your questions, everybody. And again, thank you for attending today's program. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the recording of the program. I'll stay online for another minute to see if there's any final questions. But again, please feel free to take advantage of our Ask a Librarian service after the program to send us any other questions that you have, and we'll be happy to get back to you.